Adult ADHD in women. From scattered to in control. Conquer overwhelm, beat brain fog, and create routines that stick without losing yourself by Marlow Hayes. Introduction. In a sterile clinic room in 1990, a group of doctors sat behind a one-way mirror. They were watching a 7-year-old boy. He was doing exactly what they expected. He was climbing the bookshelf, humming at the top of his lungs, and knocking over a tray of blocks. To the doctors, this was the face of ADHD. It was loud, it was messy, it was impossible to ignore. In the waiting room next door, a young girl sat perfectly still. She was swinging her feet just a little, but her hands were folded in her lap. To the doctors passing by, she looked like a dream student. Inside her head, however, a storm was brewing. She was trying to remember if she had left her favorite doll in the car. She was wondering why the lights in the room felt so itchy on her skin. She was worrying that she had missed a direction the nurse gave her 5 minutes ago. She was drowning in thoughts, but she didn't make a sound. Because she wasn't causing a problem, no one thought she had a problem. For decades, the medical world decided that ADHD was a boy thing. They thought it was about running and jumping. They missed the millions of women whose hyperactivity was tucked away inside their minds. This mistake created a hidden epidemic. It left an entire generation of women growing up feeling like they were just bad at being adults. They didn't think they had a different kind of brain. They just thought they were lazy, messy, or broken. The weight of the secret. If you are reading this, you probably know that feeling well. You might be the woman who is a star at the office, but comes home to a house that feels like a war zone. You might be the friend who is always 10 minutes late, no matter how early you start getting ready. You probably have a junk drawer that has expanded to fill an entire room, or a staircase of doom where laundry goes to sit for weeks. The hardest part isn't the mess or the missed deadlines. It is the shame. Most women with ADHD spend every ounce of their energy trying to look normal. You spend your day making sure nobody sees the chaos. You smile at the PTA meeting while your brain screams about the 3 things you forgot to do. You work twice as hard as everyone else just to stay at the starting line. This is called masking. It is like wearing a heavy costume every single day. By the time you get home, you are so tired that you can't even decide what to have for dinner. You aren't just tired in your muscles, you are tired in your soul. You might have spent years telling yourself that if you just bought the right planner, or if you just tried a little harder, you would finally get it together. But you can't will your way out of a brain that is wired differently. A life on high alert. Maya Reynolds knows this cycle better than anyone. Maya is 34 years old and lives in a bright apartment in Chicago. If you saw her at her job as a marketing manager, you would think she has it all figured out. She is quick, she is funny, and she comes up with ideas that no one else sees. But Maya lives in a state of emergency mode. On a Tuesday morning at 7:30 a.m., Maya is standing in her kitchen. Her 4-year-old son Leo is tugging on her leg because he can't find his shoes. Her husband Ben is asking if she saw his car keys. Maya is staring at a half-packed lunchbox. She just realized today is crazy sock day at Leo's school. She forgot. Again. Her phone starts ringing on the counter. It's her boss. Her laptop is beeping because the battery is at 2%. In that moment, Maya doesn't feel like a high-achieving manager. She feels like a failure. She reaches for a jar of jam. Her hand shakes, and the jar hits the floor. It shatters. Red jam and glass shards spread across the tiles. Maya doesn't move. She doesn't grab a towel. She just stands there, looking at the mess, and starts to cry. She isn't crying about the jam. She is crying because she feels like she is one mistake away from her whole life falling apart. She feels like a fraud who is about to be caught. Maya represents so many of us. She is capable and brilliant, but she is running a race with a backpack full of rocks that no one else has to carry. What this book promises you did not pick up this book because you want to be perfect. You picked it up because you want to breathe. This book is your guide to putting down those rocks. We are going to move away from the idea that you need to be fixed. Instead, we are going to look at how your brain actually works. We are going to move from a place of shame to a place of neurocuriosity. By the time you finish these pages, you will have a new set of tools. We call this scaffolding. Just like a building needs a frame to hold it up while it's being built, your ADHD brain needs external systems to help it manage the world. The road ahead. We are going to follow Maya as she moves from that broken jam jar on the kitchen floor to a life where she feels in charge. You will see her learn to set up her external hard drive. You will see her stop paying the masking tax that drains her energy. Here's a map of where we are going. The biological reality. We will explore why things feel so hard and how your brain is actually wired. The masking tax. We will look at the cost of acting normal and how to start being yourself. The 7 pillars. We will break down the specific areas where your brain needs help, from memory to emotions. The dopamine dragon. We will learn how to feed your brain the stimulation it needs in healthy ways. Hormones and haze. We will look at how your cycle changes your ADHD and how to plan for those foggy weeks. Focus and environment. We will learn how to turn your home and office into spaces that support you instead of distracting you. Self-acceptance. We will end by looking at your ADHD as a different way of being, not a deficit. You have spent long enough feeling like you are too much and not enough at the same time. You have spent long enough wondering why everyone else seems to have an instruction manual for life that you never received. This book is that manual. It is written for your brain by people who understand how it feels to be inside it. The jam is on the floor and the house is messy, but the story isn't over. It is actually just beginning. You are not a failed version of a normal person. You are a wonderful version of a neurodivergent woman, and it is time to start living like one. Chapter 1. Why does everything feel so hard? Emma Darwin sat at her heavy oak desk in 1848, the nib of her pen hovering over a small, leather-bound book. Outside the window of Down House, the English countryside was a blur of green and gray. Inside, the house was a storm of activity. 10 children, a small army of servants, and a husband who was often too ill to leave his bed, all relied on her. She needed to track the household accounts, the grocery lists, and the endless schedules of a busy family. But as the ink dried on her pen, her mind was miles away. She wasn't thinking about the price of flour or the missing buttons on a coat. She was thinking about the complex musical structure of a piano piece she had played the night before. She was thinking about the big questions of life and faith that she often discussed with her husband, Charles. Emma was the person who held the world of the famous scientist Charles Darwin together. Without her, the theory of evolution might never have made it onto paper. She managed the finances, the health of the family, and the quiet environment Charles needed to work. Yet, her own journals, her daybooks, tell a story of a woman who felt she was constantly fighting her own mind. She used those books not because she was naturally organized, but because she had to be. She knew that if she didn't write a thought down the second it appeared, it would vanish like smoke. She felt the heavy weight of administrivia, the small, boring tasks of daily life that felt like climbing a mountain. For Emma, the struggle wasn't a lack of intelligence. She was a brilliant woman who spoke multiple languages and was a gifted musician. The struggle was the mundane. When a task was new, exciting, or deeply important to someone she loved, she could do it with incredible focus. But when it was just another Tuesday with another list of chores, her brain seemed to go on strike. She was living with a mind that required a very specific kind of fuel to move: the interest-based nervous system. Most people are taught that they should be able to do things because those things are important. We are told that if a bill needs to be paid or a room needs to be cleaned, the importance of the task should be enough to make us do it. This is how a linear or importance-based nervous system works. But for many women, including those who suspect they might have ADHD, the brain doesn't care about importance. It cares about interest. This is what experts call the interest-based nervous system, ICN. It is a different way of being wired. It means your brain doesn't have a priority button that works the same way as everyone else's. Instead of a clear list of what matters most, your brain is looking for a spark. Without that spark, the engine won't start, no matter how much you yell at yourself to get moving. There are 4 main things that act as sparks for this kind of brain. Interest. You can focus for hours on a topic that fascinates you, even if it has nothing to do with your actual job or chores. Challenge. You love solving a puzzle or proving that something impossible can be done. Novelty. New things, a new hobby, a new project, a new app, give your brain a massive rush of energy. Urgency. You might be the person who waits until the very last hour to start a project, because the fire of a deadline is the only thing that creates enough focus to finish. Emma Darwin lived this every day. When Charles was sick, her focus was laser sharp. She was his nurse, his editor, and his protector. The urgency and the challenge of keeping him alive and working fueled her. But when things were calm, she struggled with the simple sieve of her mind. She had to pour information in constantly, just to keep it full. She wasn't lazy. She was just waiting for the right kind of fuel. The view from the therapist's chair. Maya Reynolds sat on the edge of a velvet chair in a quiet office in Chicago. The room smelled faintly of lavender and old books. She had spent 34 years believing she was a failed adult. She was a high-achieving marketing manager who could lead a team of 20 people through a global product launch, yet she had spent the last 3 weeks staring at a pile of unopened mail on her kitchen island. "I feel like I have 100 tabs open in my brain at all times," Maya told the therapist, "and at least 5 of them are frozen, and one is playing music I can't find, and I'm pretty sure the whole computer is about to crash." Maya expected the therapist to tell her she needed a better planner. She expected to hear that she just needed more grit or better discipline. Instead, the therapist leaned forward and said something that changed everything. "Maya, your brain is not broken," the therapist said. "It's just wired for interest, not importance. You aren't lazy, you are actually working twice as hard as everyone else just to do the simple things, because your brain isn't getting the dopamine it needs to start the engine." Maya felt a sudden sharp sting in her eyes. It was the first time in her life someone had suggested that her struggle wasn't a character flaw. For years, she had watched other mothers effortlessly remember crazy sock day at school, or keep their cars clean. She had assumed they were just better at being humans. She didn't realize they were playing the game on easy mode, while she was playing on hard mode with a controller that only worked half the time. This realization is the first step toward moving from scattered to in control. You cannot fix a problem you don't understand. If you keep trying to use importance to motivate a brain that only runs on interest, you will always end up exhausted and full of shame. The wall of awful. Why is it that some tasks feel physically painful to start? For Maya, it was the staircase of doom. This was the pile of clean laundry that sat on the stairs, waiting to be taken up to the bedrooms. Every time she walked past it, she felt a wave of guilt. She would tell herself, "It only takes 2 minutes, just pick it up," but her feet wouldn't move. This is what experts call the wall of awful. Every time you fail at a task, or get criticized for being messy or forgetful, you add a brick to a mental wall. These bricks are made of shame, guilt, and the memory of past failures. Eventually, that wall becomes so high that you can't even see the task anymore. All you see is the wall. To get past the wall, most people try to power through it. They use anger or self-shame to try and break the bricks. They tell themselves they are stupid or pathetic, until they feel so bad that they finally move. But this is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It might work for a moment, but it leaves you burned out and even more afraid of the next task. The alternative is to find a way over, under, or around the wall. This requires scaffolding. Scaffolding is a set of external systems that support your brain where it is weak. For Emma Darwin, the scaffolding was her daybooks. For Maya, it would eventually be a body-doubling partner, someone who just sat in the room while she folded the laundry, providing the interest and novelty her brain needed to get the job done. Even women of great power and influence have felt this secret weight. Eleanor Roosevelt is remembered as a tireless leader, a diplomat, and a woman of incredible discipline. But her early journals tell a different story. As a young woman, she felt plain and out of place. She struggled with the social expectations of her time, which required her to be a perfect hostess and manage the tiny, boring details of a high society life. Eleanor described a nervous energy that kept her moving, but often left her feeling scattered. She felt like an outsider looking in, watching other women navigate the world with a grace she felt she lacked. To survive, she created a mask. She developed a rigid, almost military schedule for herself. She forced herself to become the person everyone expected her to be. This is the masking tax. It is the massive amount of mental energy women spend every day pretending to be normal. It's the energy Maya spent in her glass-walled office in Chicago, making sure her desk looked tidy and her notes were perfect, even though her brain felt like a beehive. When you spend all your energy on the mask, you have nothing left for the people you love when you get home. Eleanor's private letters reveal a woman who often felt dead inside from the sheer effort of the performance. She was achieving great things, but she was paying a price that no one else can see. Executive dysfunction. The brain's secretary. To understand why everything feels so hard, we have to look at the secretary of the brain. In science, this is called executive function. Think of it as a person sitting at a desk inside your forehead. This secretary is responsible for working memory, holding on to a thought long enough to act on it, like remembering why you walked into the kitchen. Impulse control, stopping yourself from saying the wrong thing, or buying that 2 a.m. solution on Amazon. Task initiation, the go button that lets you start a project. Organization, figuring out which step comes first. In an ADHD brain, the secretary is often overwhelmed underpaid, or simply hiding under the desk. This is executive dysfunction. It isn't a lack of desire to do the work. It is a biological breakdown in the systems that make the work possible. When Maya forgot Crazy Sock Day for her son Leo, it wasn't because she didn't care about him. It was because her working memory secretary had dropped that specific piece of paper while trying to handle 100 other things. When she stood in her kitchen staring at a shattered jar of jam, unable to move, it was because her task initiation secretary had quit for the day. The trap of dopamine scavenging. The ADHD brain is naturally low on dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical that makes us feel rewarded and motivated. Because the brain is hungry for this chemical, it will go looking for it in any way it can. This is called dopamine scavenging. Have you ever found yourself procrastinating? This is when you do something productive, like researching a new organic gardening method for 3 hours, to avoid doing something you actually need to do, like your taxes. The gardening research is shiny and provides a quick hit of dopamine. The taxes are a dopamine desert. Dopamine scavenging is why you might stay up until 2 a.m. scrolling through social media or shopping for the perfect organizational bins. Your brain is desperately searching for a spark of interest to feel alive. The problem is that these low-quality hits of dopamine are like eating candy for dinner. They give you a quick rush, but they leave you feeling even more depleted and foggy the next morning. Emma Darwin scavenged for dopamine through her music and her deep intellectual curiosities. Hedy Lamarr, the famous actress, scavenged for it through her late-night inventions. They weren't just hobbies. They were survival mechanisms for brains that were starving for stimulation. Turning the key. The good news is that once you understand how your nervous system works, you can stop fighting it. You can stop trying to turn a key in a lock that doesn't fit. Moving forward isn't about trying harder. It's about trying different. It's about building the scaffolding that Emma Darwin used to manage Downhouse. It's about recognizing the wall of awful and finding ways to climb it that don't involve shaming yourself. It's about realizing that your interest-based nervous system is actually a powerful engine. It just needs the right kind of fuel. Maya's journey didn't end in that therapist's office. It began there. For the first time, she could look at the pile of mail and the staircase of doom and see them for what they were. Tasks that her brain wasn't currently fueled to handle. She could stop saying, "I am a failure," and start saying, "My secretary is overwhelmed. What kind of help does she need right now?" This shift in perspective is the most important tool you will ever own. It is the foundation of everything that comes next. You are not a lazy, disorganized woman who can't get her act together. You are a woman with a complex, high-performance brain that has been trying to run on the wrong software. Take a look at your own life over the last week. Think about the moments where you felt like you were flying, where you were focused, creative, and in the zone. What was the spark? Was it a challenge? Was it something brand new? Was it a looming deadline? Now look at the tasks that felt like walking through wet cement. Instead of blaming your character, look at the fuel. Was there any interest, novelty, or urgency there? Probably not. The challenge for you right now is to be honest about those cement moments. Stop telling yourself you should be able to do them. Start asking why your brain is saying no. Are you facing a wall of awful built of old shame? Is your secretary hiding under the desk because she has too many tabs open? Your brain has been trying to tell you something for a long time. It isn't broken. It's just waiting for you to learn how to drive it. The days of scrambling and masking are exhausting, and you've been doing them for long enough. It's time to stop paying the tax and start building the life that actually fits the way you think. If you could give yourself permission to stop being normal for just one day, what is the first thing you would stop forcing yourself to do? What is the one task you've been shaming yourself over that actually has zero interest fuel in it? Write that task down. And for the first time, tell yourself the truth. It's not that I can't do it. It's that my brain isn't wired to do it this way. That is where your control begins. Chapter 2. The Masking Tax. The Hidden Cost of Fitting In. In the winter of 1933, a woman named Eleanor Roosevelt moved into the White House. She did not want to be there. She had spent most of her life trying to stay out of the spotlight. She was shy, she felt she was plain, and she worried that she didn't have what it took to be the wife of a president. Most people saw her as a powerhouse, but inside, she felt like a girl who was constantly trying to catch up with a world that moved too fast. Eleanor was what many people today would call a high-functioning NASCAR. Her husband, Franklin, had been struck by polio years earlier. He couldn't walk, so Eleanor became his legs. She traveled the country, visited coal mines, and spoke to thousands of people. She wrote a daily newspaper column. She answered hundreds of letters every single week. To the public, she was the picture of perfect discipline. She followed a schedule so tight, it would make a general nervous. But behind the scenes, this schedule wasn't a choice. It was a survival tactic. Eleanor lived with a constant, humming sense of nervous energy. She felt that if she stopped moving for even a second, the whole house of cards would come crashing down. She used her rigid routine to hide the fact that she often felt scattered and overwhelmed. She was paying a tax every single day, just to appear like the woman the world expected her to be. This is the hidden reality for so many women. You spend your day making sure the kids are fed, the emails are sent, and the house looks good enough. On the outside, you look like you have it all under control. But on the inside, you are running a marathon just to stay in the same place. The pitch and the panic. Maya Reynolds sat in a glass-walled conference room in downtown Chicago. She looked like the definition of success. Her hair was pulled back into a sleek bun. She wore a sharp blazer that screamed senior marketing manager. On the table in front of her was a beautiful presentation for a new ad campaign. "Maya, this is brilliant," her boss said, leaning back in his chair. "I don't know how you do it. You're the most organized person on this team." Maya smiled and thanked him. Her voice was steady. She looked calm, but underneath the table, her hands were shaking. 10 minutes before the meeting started, Maya realized she was wearing one black sock and one navy blue sock. She had spent the last hour of the morning frantically looking for her car keys, only to find them in the refrigerator. As she sat in this meeting, she knew that her car was currently being towed because she had forgotten to check the street sweeping signs. She was performing. She was playing the role of Maya, the professional. This performance took every ounce of energy she had. While her boss was talking about budget projections, Maya was trying to remember if she had actually turned off the stove. She was trying to calculate how much it would cost to get her car back. She was wondering if anyone noticed the slight smudge of peanut butter on her sleeve from her son's breakfast. When the meeting ended, Maya's colleagues walked out chatting about where to go for lunch. Maya stayed behind. She felt like a battery that had been drained to 1%. She had spent so much brain power pretending to be normal and organized that she didn't have anything left for the actual work she needed to do next. This is the masking tax in action. It is the mental and physical cost of pretending you don't have ADHD. There is a big misunderstanding about ADHD in women. Many people think that if you can hold down a job, keep a home, or get good grades, you must not have ADHD. They think ADHD only looks like a young boy jumping off his chair in a classroom. They assume that if you aren't causing a problem for other people, you aren't struggling. This is a myth. The truth is that many women with ADHD are experts at hiding their struggles. We call this masking. You learn very early in life that being forgetful or messy is seen as a character flaw in girls. While a boy might be called energetic, a girl is often told she is dizzy, scattered, or lazy. To avoid these labels, you build a mask. You might become a perfectionist. You might check your alarm clock 10 times before bed. You might over-prepare for every meeting because you're terrified of being found out. People look at you and see someone who is doing great. They don't see the duck syndrome. Think of a duck swimming on a lake. Above the water, the duck looks smooth and peaceful. It just glides along. But under the water, its feet are paddling like crazy. It is working 10 times harder than everyone else just to stay afloat. When you mask, you are that duck. You are using your intelligence and your willpower to cover up the gaps in your executive function. You aren't high-functioning because your ADHD is mild. You are high-functioning because your masking is intense. Why the mask costs so much? Every time you force yourself to act like someone who doesn't have a neurodivergent brain, you are paying a tax. In the world of science, we call this compensatory strategies. These are the tricks you use to get by. Maybe you use a professional persona at work. You are quiet, you take lots of notes, and you never speak up unless you have a script. This helps you avoid making an impulsive comment or losing your train of thought. But it also means you aren't being your real creative self. This tax is paid in glucose, the fuel your brain uses to think. Your brain only has a limited amount of fuel each day. A person without ADHD uses their fuel to do their work. A woman with ADHD who is masking uses 50% of her fuel just to act normal. That leaves only 50% for the actual work. This is why you might feel completely done by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's why you might be a superstar at the office, but come home and find yourself unable to decide what to have for dinner. You've run out of fuel. You've paid the tax, and your account is empty. For Eleanor Roosevelt, this tax showed up as nervous exhaustion. In her private letters, she admitted that she often felt dead inside after a long day of public events. She was so busy being the first lady the world needed that she lost touch with who Eleanor really was. The chameleon effect. One way women mask is by becoming chameleons. You might find that you change your personality depending on who you are with. If you are with a group of very organized moms, you try to talk about planners and organic snacks. If you are with high-achieving coworkers, you mirror their serious tone and fast-paced talk. This is a survival skill. It helps you fit in. But it also leads to a feeling of being a fraud. You start to wonder which one is the real me. Maya felt this every day. When she was with her husband, Ben, she was often messy and forgetful. She would leave cabinets open and lose her phone in the laundry pile. But when she walked into her office, she flipped a switch. The problem is that flipping that switch is exhausting. It keeps your body in a state of autonomic arousal. This is a fancy way of saying your body stays in fight or flight mode. Your brain thinks you are in danger of being exposed, so it keeps your heart rate up and your stress levels high. Living in this state for years leads to burnout. It's not just being tired. It's a deep, soul-level exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. It happens because you have been performing a play for 20 years without a single day off. Breaking the cycle of shame. The first step to lowering the masking tax is realizing that you are paying it. Most women don't even know they are masking. They just think they are bad at being an adult. They think everyone else finds it easy to remember appointments or keep a clean kitchen, and they are the only ones who have to try this hard. When Maya started seeing her therapist, she finally had a name for it. "You want to fraud, Maya," the therapist said. "You are just tired of pretending your brain works like everyone else's." Maya realized that she had been shaming herself for needing more help. She thought that if she was smart, she shouldn't need a loud timer to remind her to pick up her son from preschool. She thought that if she was a good mom, she shouldn't feel overwhelmed by the noise of a playdate. But once she understood the masking tax, the shame started to melt away. She realized that her messy home life wasn't a sign of failure. It was a sign that she was using all her energy to survive her workday. Identifying your own mask. To stop paying the tax, you have to see the mask for what it is. Here are some common ways women with ADHD mask. The perfectionist. You spend 4 hours on a task that should take 1 hour because you are terrified of making a small mistake. The overachiever. You say yes to every volunteer position and every extra project so no one will think you are lazy. The quiet observer. You stay silent in social groups because you are afraid you will say something weird or lose the thread of the conversation. The hyper-organized. You have 5 different planners and a color-coded kitchen, but you feel like you are one missed to-do away from a total collapse. The social butterfly. You use humor and constant talking to distract people from the fact that you forgot their name or didn't do the thing you promised to do. None of these things are bad. They are tools you built to survive in a world that wasn't designed for your brain. But you need to ask yourself, what is this tool costing me? If your perfectionism is causing you to have panic attacks, the tax is too high. If your overachiever mask is keeping you from playing with your children because you're too tired, the tax is too high. Unmasking doesn't mean you stop being professional or that you start being rude to people. It means you stop pretending you don't have needs. It means being honest about how your brain works. For Maya, this started with a small step at work. After a big meeting, she stopped pretending she could remember everything that was said. Instead of nodding and hoping for the best, she started saying, "This was a great meeting. Can you send those 3 main points to me in an email? I want to make sure I don't miss any details." She wasn't admitting defeat. She was setting up a system. At home, she talked to Ben. "I'm not leaving the cabinets open to annoy you," she explained. "My brain literally deletes the cabinet once I've taken the plate out. I'm going to try putting a small sticker on the inside of the door to remind me. But I also need you to know it's not because I don't care about our house." When you unmask, you give yourself permission to use scaffolding. We will talk more about this in the next chapter. But scaffolding is the set of tools you use to support your brain. When you stop trying to hide your ADHD, you can finally start managing it. The cost of the perfect woman. For a long time, we have told women they should be able to do it all. We see images of women who have the perfect career, the perfect body, and the perfect children. This is a trap for any woman, but for a woman with ADHD, it's a death sentence for her mental health. The masking tax is the price we pay for trying to fit into a mold that wasn't made for us. We try to be the perfect woman who is always on time, always organized, and always calm. But the ADHD brain is naturally spontaneous, creative, and nonlinear. When you try to force a nonlinear brain